welcome. So we're excited to have some of our amazing Earth ambassadors here to share their upcoming projects and their platforms. So I'm really excited to introduce McKaylin. So let's give her a round of applause. Woo!
Hi everyone, so my project is called Echoes of a Forest. I'll be highlighting youth voices for creating sustainable future. Next slide, please.
Next slide.
So a little bit about me. I'm a citizen of the Menominee Nation. I'm also Oneida in Forest County, Potawatomi, and Prairie Band Potawatomi. I currently serve as the executive director of my tribe's chairman's office, so I work really closely with the chairman and vice chair in our council. I'm a graduate student at Johns Hopkins University. This fall I start classes this coming Monday, and I'm a 2025 Earth Ambassador at the Midwest region. And being an Earth Ambassador means sharing the knowledge of our ancestors and helping people remember that the Earth is alive. One thing my grandparents taught me is that our plants and our animals, they don't have a voice, so they need someone to speak for them, and to always leave spaces better than the way you found them. So that's some teaching I carry really closely to me. Next slide, please. So my goals and my platform. So my first one is to preserve cultural knowledge. I plan on doing interviews with tribal members from every generation, and my goal out of that is to transfer knowledge from generation to generation. I want to amplify youth voices because I feel a lot of Menominee youth don't realize what they're doing is important. We have youth that are saving the language. We have youth that are working with our buffalo, with our medicines, and I don't think they understand that their role is actually really important within the community. And I would like to highlight that and give them the acknowledgement and credit that they deserve. I would also like to inspire youth and see that they are caretakers of the earth and that their roles are important. And to promote climate resiliency, I want to elevate Indigenous knowledge systems because we were the first scientists and caretakers of this earth. So I would like to do that. Next. One thing I'm highlighting out of my entire project is youth empowerment. So I would like them to tell their stories. I already interviewed 2 youth so far, one of them being a language keeper and then another being a caretaker of the buffalo. My tribe recently just got buffalo a few years ago. We were once buffalo people, but they left the state of Wisconsin, but now we're trying to bring them back. The male that I interviewed that takes care of the buffalo, he also is a fly fisherman with medicine fish, and he is a language keeper too. So helping them find that they have these roles, I don't think they realized that there was language keeper, like names to these roles of things that they're doing in their everyday life, and want to highlight those Menominee life ways. Next slide. So this is a Menominee legacy of Chief Oshkosh. I'm descendant of Chief Oshkosh and Chief Grizzly Bear, and one of his most influential quote is how to take care of our forests. So he says, "Start with the rising sun and work towards the setting sun, but only take the mature trees, the sick trees, and the trees that have fallen." So my tribe, we're really rich in timber. Our mill is highly successful, but backstory, my tribe was so economically successful off of our mill that we were terminated in the 40s and 50s. So essentially we were terminated for being good caretakers of our land. And after we were terminated and we fought to be restored, we were not economically successful off of our mill the way that we were. And termination actually brought a lot of our members to the relocation era. So a lot of our members left to Chicago, Milwaukee, and Minneapolis. A lot of language was lost. We lost our tribal schools, so and then all of our land went up for sale. So actually my reservation coincides in the lines of Menominee County, and we are a tourist destination. So in the summer, a lot of people come up to their summer homes, and it doesn't feel like home. So then the next slide, this is a picture I wanted to share. So this is our reservation line right here. You can see how dense our forest is. Our forest is so dense that when NASA's up in space, they actually look for the Menominee reservation lines as a pinpoint to the state of Wisconsin in the United States. Fun fact, the NCAA Final Four courts are made from timber from my woods, so that's something that I always like to highlight. The Milwaukee Bucks floors timbers from here too. And I always pride myself on where we come from because like someone said like Lauren Ashley said before, my tribe is very rich in resources, but we're not rich economically. But I would much rather be this rich than economically rich because I have homelands to come to, and I have stories in my family where they come from. And one thing I'm trying to bring out in my project is what it means to be Menominee. I think that when youth hear that, they hear of all the hardships and the struggles that come with being a Menominee person, but I don't think they realize like we had drums, we had 8 deer, we had all these like monumental, resilient people that came to fight for our identity and our stories that they're following within their steps. So next slide. So why teaching history matters in healing through truth and language and culture. So I'm going to be highlighting the termination era within my project because I think tribal sovereignty and knowing what tribal sovereignty is important. I want to talk about how families were displaced, languages were silent, and cultural practices were suppressed. One part of my project I'm working on, so my tribe is looking into creating an economic venture of maple sugar camps. So I'm actually interviewing families of their tapping history, and hearing some of the stories, there's actually like a lot of hardships that came with the tapping history. So when we were terminated, when the feds came in and cut down a lot of our trees, they actually cut down camps that have been there for multi-generations. And there was this family in one of the villages, West Branch, that I was interviewing, and he said that he was just a little boy when this happened, that the first time he seen his grandpa cried was when they went to camp and he saw that their lots were cleared. Like he literally felt hurt with the trees, and it happened more than 50 years ago, and like to hear him talk about it today, it almost felt like it happened yesterday. And I didn't know that there could be like a dark history to something that is part of our culture. Also, I would like, so why teach history to youth? My youth council, so I brought up termination, and one of my council members was like, what's termination? And I looked at her, I was like, are you serious right now? And she's like, she actually really didn't know what termination was, and we were one of the few tribes that were terminated in the country. So for her not to know what that was, I felt that it was my mission to teach my youth council members what termination is and the history of that, and how that coincides with how we took care of our land and how we fought to get our land back. And then I think you can go to the next slide. Why went in? So then I wanted to highlight 2 parts that I'm currently working on. So actually last night my tribe just passed a motion to pick a date for a tree healing ceremony that me and the chairman are working on. Just a few weeks ago we had a tornado go through our reservation and tear up a lot of our trees and land, so we had to clear cut a lot of spaces, which is like, we try not to clear cut at all. And it like our part of the reservation, we're like downtown, it looks completely different now. So we're gonna have a tree healing ceremony where we're gonna plant more trees. So that's something I'm currently working on. And then another is the tapping history stories that I'm working on. I'm actually gonna be going to Canada with my tribe to visit another tribe's maple syrup business to see how they tap using gravity. So I'm actually learning quite a little bit about that. And then another thing that I'm trying to make less intimidating is involving youth within science. few of my council members I bring to attend our Ag and Environmental Committee meetings. They are really intimidated with science and math, but I tell them just because you're intimidated by science and math doesn't mean you can't be a caretaker of the land. And so when they attend these meetings, they're actually finding out a lot about like all the mill prescriptions of our timber. They're learning about how we do cultural burning with the wildland firefighters, and they're learning about we are going to the Supreme Court within the state of Wisconsin because Menominee County is trying to put a chemical within our Legend Lake that's actually going to kill the sturgeon that we have in there. And then another initiative, I was actually invited on to help with our tribe is taking down a dam that's right outside of our reservation, and that will actually help bring the sturgeon back home because we are sturgeon people. So I'm really excited about that, and I hope it all works out because my grandma was working on this project 25 years ago when she was working in tribal offices. So now that we're actually like getting closer and having companies come in and help us, it's we're seeing the end of it. So I'm really excited for that. And to bringing all the point of all my different aspects, I have about 4 different aspects. I have language revitalization, determination era, highlighting youth voices within being caretakers of the land. But then 4th one is highlighting Menominee Lifeways. Taking all those different viewpoints and bringing it into one project has been very difficult for me because I'm getting pulled different ways, but I'm figuring out a way of how to bring that all into being a caretaker and a carrier of Menominee Lifeways and land. Having all those different scopes, and I'm trying to highlight of what it means to be a Menominee person, but also what it means to be an Indigenous person and taking care of your land, but also carrying what we learned from past generations of our history, because it's important to remember why our elders fought, but it's also important to remember why we have future goals. So thank you for listening, and that's it.
So real quick, we just want to ask you a couple of questions. So, for example, what would you say to Native youth? You're one of the youngest people at the table in a lot of these meetings that you go to, and you mentioned sometimes some people can be intimidated by the science. What would you say to Native youth who may be nervous to go to these meetings and feel kind of out of place, but just like encouraging them? What would you say?
Ask questions. When I first started my position, I was really intimidated because I thought I was lucky to just have a seat at the table, but the power in raising your hand and asking questions holds a lot. My favorite question is why. Why are we doing that? Why are we doing this, and why are we following up with that? I like stumping some of the committee members with questions when I ask, well, why are we doing this in the first place? They really have to. It grounds them and forces them to sit back and okay, how do I explain this question? I would also remember that there's a reason that you're in that room, and when you're asking these questions, you're forcing those adults to be responsible and take responsibility for their actions if they know it. And I'm sure you've heard this, but one of the old sayings is there's someone's always watching. Us being at the table forces them to be accountable. I also think that it holds a lot of power because when we're sitting at those tables, they can't move maliciously. They can't, because they're being reminded that there's a generation that they're fighting for at that table. So just remember that you may be intimidated by them or by the big words they're using or by others in the room, but they're also intimidated by you. So that's, yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
How, in today's world, with politics being so decisive and really driving people apart, and there's this idea that, like, okay, if you're for the environment, then you're against economy and growth. So how do you how would you, I guess, try to balance that so that you can have both environmental protection and stewardship and grow? Because I feel like, you know, for environmental issues is not just about, you know, our own people and our lands and resources, because we share this land with other nationalities and ethnic groups and populations. So how do you bring people together, like, to get behind, like, your message and, you know?
I'm running into that right now actually with the maple sugar business that we're trying to start. A lot of the elders are against it. I call them little Loraxes. They're against it because of essentially it would mean like damaging those trees if we're gonna rely on like a certain area to start that business. But I think one thing that I really try to do is try to get them to trust me with their stories and showing them that I do care and that there is someone that is listening to them. I also try to keep an open line of communication because you can't just call the chairman and talk to them. So I try to make sure that I'm very accessible to tribal, but also to non-tribal members. And one thing that we're learning right now, so my tribe is trying to build a casino in Kenosha, and we are getting other tribes that are trying to fight us because that would actually take economic away from them. But I think that when people are at the table looking for decisions made within environment, they look at indigenous people, and it can't be all about the money. And I think that's where we get lost is when we're showing the numbers, but we're not showing the science or the detriments that can happen to the environment. One thing that I really love about the current chairman that I'm working under right now is he's very honest and open and transparent. That's really hard to find in leaders. So I'm trying to take what I can learn from him so I can lead in the same way, to have those open and honest conversations, because when there is economic development, that does mean that something's going to be hurt, but that doesn't mean that we can't try and help preserve certain parts or try to come up with solutions that everyone would be happy with. That's one thing that I'm going forth with these interviews in my story and my project is that I'm being trusted with these stories, so I can't use it to be malicious or I can't use it to get what I want. These are other people's stories, so I have to be very careful with how I'm carrying them and what I'm using them for. I hope that kind of answered your question.
Absolutely. Anyone else? All right. Nicholas, thank you so much. All right, thank you guys so much. We are going to take a break for lunch right now. We are super grateful. We have 2 more presentations that we definitely want to hear from.